Hey folks, welcome and welcome. I don't have I guess a title for the screen, screenshot. I meant to do that. I instead hit quickly. Let's go live. So sorry about no introduction picture thing for my video. That is on me. And yes, today I'm not wearing my sunglasses, and you can tell by the brightness in my doorway there and the light that the sun is shining today. February 6th, 17th now, folks. Wow, it's been 16 days since I made an episode. I apologize and stuff for not making one sooner. My back, neck, and health wise, it's been acting up, and I didn't want to look like a sourpuss or whatnot on the show that I am trying to do. Dude in a house coat chat, your host, Justice Truth. You can even call me Justin, but that's all you really need to know. The show is for fun, entertainment, and some knowing. And I only say that because I'm not trying to get sued, just looking for engagement. Like, subscribe this channel, leave a comment. It's live now, and all that wonderful stuff. Right, let's just get those things out of the way. I may say it again. Yes, it's a tragic weekish in Canada, and I really wanted to make a video sooner on the tragedy in a way, and at the same time, I did not want to do a video on the tragedy in Tumbler Ridge, only because I am just a dude in a housecoat. I am not an influencer, I'm not a newscaster, and I don't need to add to the confusion that the RCMP started with, despite them claiming that online influence is distorting the whole story. But it is the RCMP who initially gave out the wrong image of who the person was that was the shooter. And in the fact, and I will only say this once here, and I'm only going to say it as politely and bluntly and logically as I could say, when you are giving a description of the shooter, please be accurate. Do not care for the so-called society's norm now, a pronoun usage, allowing people to be identified how they see fit. That is their own being, I guess, to be polite to say, but to the other 7, 8+ billion people in the world that see you as an individual, may or may not go along with what you want to do with your switch hitting ways. I don't really want to use the words because then I get flagged and my video is suppressed on YouTube. So that's why you see me doing some word plays in a way, because certain words flagged YouTube. They watch the video. I mean, no disrespect to anybody that is trying to be different because they feel different and they think it's the way that they should go. If you're an adult, please go hard on that feeling. Just don't hurt anyone, right? My thoughts and prayers to Scone is lit for the people of Tumbler Ridge, the friends and families of this tragic event. And all I could say is that, wow. I mean, seriously, I'm looking at a bit of my notes here that I'm making and stuff like that. And again, the RCMP failures and the whole ideological woke thing that everybody's trying to force down our throat and saying it's imperative, important, and we got to look out for the smallest fraction of society. But meanwhile, statistically speaking, this small fraction of society is causing a lot of chaos. I mean, seriously, despite giving them the guns back, and those guns were not used in the shooting, as I am aware of at this moment, because the RCMP have sealed, yes, you've heard me correct, sealed, clapping for the ideological thing. I know I'm double word playing here, but the point is that they're sealing the records about giving the guns back to that family. This person whose child also tried to burn a house down on this family. Clearly showing a lot of emotional, psychological distress. And I know there's a lot of videos and things, images and quotes and everything else that may be attributed to this person. At the end of the day, my thoughts are with the young girl fighting for her life. She is making a recovery. She is not awake yet. She does have feelings. She doesn't sense people around her, the voices and everything like that. I am not going to get into details of her injury other than to say that I pray and hope that this child makes it, and I hope she can recover from it, and I truly hope that she can live a normalish life as possible. Now, for the other young girl that is alive and out of the hospital, hope her the same thing too. I'm not going to try and say names or anything like that. I'm not trying to make my show based on what events happen and try and make myself an influencer. I don't want to be an influencer. The only thing I want to influence people on is you as an individual, that I'm looking at all of you in the camera right now, is that you have to read more. You have to look more. I know life is busy, life is chaotic, but we are being lied to and manipulated so much that it is destroying us, folks. We as a country are on a managed decline, but I'll get to that talk here in a second. But all this stuff that's going on, just recently in Pawtucket in the United States, a very similar thing happened, but yet a individual was able to wrestle the gun away. And again, the videos and stuff of the individual are shocking, just like the person who was from Grand Prairie who's free on bail after nearly severing her child's neck, or his, sorry, whatever that person may be. I don't really want to sound like I'm being disrespectful, but I don't want to play the word games of these pronouns and everything else. Your name is fine. You don't need to go on to anymore. We're not like the old royalty where we announce that I, the High Court of the Windsor Castle, Lord of the Shire. That's bullshit. That's just a long-winded excuse of self-importance. And people are people. When we meet each other, we're equals, and that the name is good enough. You don't have to go any farther. Little rant there, but you know what I mean. But the mental health aspect of all this, and that child was clearly in need. And there's no doctors on the weekend at the hospital at this Tumbler Ridge place. Now, it may not always be that way, but it's what I've been reading. They didn't have enough doctors up there at the time of the incident, and that is tragic in itself, as it is. The young girl who is struggling to live right now tried to save her friends and classmates by locking the library door. Kudos to her and all that. The RCMP response in a small community of 2,500 of engaging the suspect, that was quick, but it is the stuff beforehand that blows my mind, like giving the guns back, or the fact that there was 2 guns that they were used weren't there in the first place, or they didn't find them when they took the first batch of guns. Whatever that story may be, I am just hopeful. And hopeful is the word, because I'm doubting myself that the RCMP is going to be open and honest, considering everything that I've learned in my almost 54 years of life, folks. Yes, that's how old I'm almost going to be. The birthday soon, another monthish. Yes, another year older for the dude in a house coat who's been trying to do these shows on a regular basis, and I hope to make more, and I apologize if you like my stuff and you're hoping I want to make more and all that wonderful stuff. Anyways, all that tragedy in Tumbler Ridge, Pawtucket, and elsewhere, the nutcase that's in Calgary recently, the one that his own child is walking free, giving tarot card readings to children for free. Yes, look at my facial expression. My wife does tarot cards. She is fairly good at what she does. She's been doing it for a long time. Her mother taught her and stuff like that. This is an individual that really makes what my wife does, Danica, do look bad and illegitimate, because this person should be behind bars at the very least in a mental institution until he's deemed safe. He should truly be in jail. If you have not seen the video of himself in his own van talking about the unique experience he gets to have to be out on bail after his child was stabbed by himself, and he proudly proclaims that, "Yet, but I put my hand on her neck wound." Wow, that gives me Jeffrey Epstein vibes, and that's another name I don't want to say on YouTube. But anyways, folks, it is nuts, and we will talk about Epstein again soon, here right away. Again, I want to thank I want to wish everybody in Tumbler Ridge betterness and whole host of healing and all those other words. I mean, it's kind of struggling to come to me because I want to make sure it's the right words, because at this moment, these words are important. Anyways, positive vibes and hugs and everything else. And I am there with you, Tumbler Ridge, and all that and such. Anyways, folks, let's just get right on to our next subject that I want to talk about is the decline of Canada. despite what you're hearing in our mainstream media propping up Carney as saying Carney is going to lead the free world. Listen to that statement right there. A former banker who's never done politics in his whole life is thrusted into the spotlight of being the Canadian Prime Minister, probably with the help of the Chinese Communist Party. And I can say that with no doubt in my mind that they did help him. I mean, seriously, folks, the connections are there. The CSIS reports about all the possible people that are into our elections and trying to undermine our country are numerous, and Russia is not even on the top of the actual list, folks. China is the biggest one, and I'll tell you why it's an indicator to me that China is the biggest one. How big is Canada? Canada is 41 million people. How big is the United States? I'm going to go off the top of my head, and sadly to say I should have looked it up a little earlier, but I will go with what I remember, 340 to 350 million people roughly. Could be higher, could be a little less, it don't matter. Now tell me, how many Chinese diplomats, dignitarians, head of this thing, head of that thing, there's a whole host of them. Sam Cooper is an excellent person to look up. He's the host of the Peru, a new show, also has several books out on the Chinese interference. But let's get back to how many diplomats, dignitaries, and whatnot that the Chinese Communist Party of West Taiwan, that's what I like to call China, by the way, is West Taiwan. Taiwan should be free forever. Hong Kong was a disgrace and should never have been given back to China. Never. And anyways, how many diplomats do you think are in Canada and in the US? It's almost equal. But what's the big difference between Canada and Russia? Canada's population is almost 10 times less. But we have that many people from this country of China, West Taiwan. I should keep saying that, West Taiwan. I know, I like that name because I want people of Taiwan to be free and not held under a tyrannical thumb of a corrupt Chinese communist system. Yes, I said it, folks, and to think that this is where Canada is going, trying to sever ties with the United States, no matter what Carney has done over his last year, has he actually improved anything besides getting a memorandum of understanding, or we will have future talks? Nothing like that yet. Where is our auto industry going? It's leaving, draining, everything else. And what does he do? We're going to bring back the EV mandates, and we're going to bring in Chinese import vehicles, basically. And then we're going to build these vehicles here in Canada. South Korea Hyundai plant is going to basically lease, and I know I've been reading, folks, they're going to basically lease the technology from the Chinese government, basically, because most companies that are in China have to have a person within the CCP party or handler. Think on that one, folks. Really, it's shameful how they do things over there. The people of China suffer, mostly the rural ones, but they do suffer worse than us at the moment. There are good things in China, plenty of good things in China, but there's a lot of bad things. And let's get back to Canada's decline. Despite the Chinese interference, guess who else is interfering with our elections and everything else? The Iranians, believe it or not. There is a person who's up for deportation, who is a major person in Iran, basically, and the hearing is under closed doors and a publication ban. What? Why are we giving so much legal protection to outsiders in this country than the people within? It's the same with going with the previous subject that I mentioned before. The laws seem to benefit the outsiders versus the people that pay into the system, who honor the system, who live by the system, right? I just mentioned a person who slashed his children's throats. He's out on bail, awaiting trial. And this was a while ago that this happened, folks. Look it up. I'm telling you, that's a wild story, and it really never made the news. And yet, he is allowed to roam free, but oh my goodness, the people that were involved with the Freedom Convoy to Merrill Lynch and Chris Barber. I want to say Barber. I might be wrong on that name. The other truck driver with Big Red. Anyways, they wanted them 7 years in prison. But they're only offering what to the other person? Yes, our laws are backwards. Here we are offering aid to everybody that's slightly sick in Canada, but we're giving $1.5 billion to people from outside the country that are coming here to get health care. Now, I don't mind being a good Canadian and helping the world out, but when I'm broke and I got no money and we're giving away my great grandchildren's money, so to speak, because of the spending that we're doing, where are we going to keep getting this money from? I mean, China is basically looking at taxing the air now. If you watch China Uncensored like I do, you'll be seeing they're doing strange things. Unrealized gains on properties and other things that are happening around the world and wanted to happen in Canada, folks. Where if you own property and there's a potential profit there and you haven't sold your profit, but the government wants the money, so they're going to take it from you this year. But what happens if the following year that your house price drops and there's no profit, so to speak, in your house, in the equity that they want to tax? What's the government going to do then? Give you a refund? No, it's basic theft, folks. They are stealing us left, right, and center. The other thing about Canada's managed decline is that this really blew me away, and I hope you've heard this story, and you better open up your eyes. Vietnam is selling our Canadian beef cheaper than we ourselves buy it. We import meat from New Zealand and Australia and other places, Brazil, Mexico, you name it, and we're shipping off our beef to other places, and they're trying to tell you, and get this, folks, it's climate change that's the reason we're implementing it in Canada. And that's why our beef is so high priced, but they're shipping our beef. It's selling it for half the price that we're selling our beef in Canada for to Vietnam. And yet we're importing beef from Australia. And if this is supposed to be for climate change, why the fuck are we shipping? And I'm going to use that word. Why the fuck are we shipping beef to Vietnam on a boat and then accepting a boat basically from the same neck of the woods like Australia? Vietnam and Australia are fairly close compared to us, but they are close. So we're shipping for what? Right? Why not keep the Canadian beef here, which I like, the grass-fed beef, everything else that's in Canada? Same with oil. Why aren't we making more oil for ourselves instead of importing it from third world dictators? And everything else, well, they benefit. If we were to use our resources, we could be as good as Norway, but probably be even better, folks. Yes, the amount of stuff that we have. The Canadian decline is a slow managed decline. UK is on decline, the EU is on a decline, Australia is on a decline, and New Zealand, and it's like a managed thing, folks. They want to lower our wages and our lifestyles down. Our way of life, they want to lower it. Hence why we're seeing mass migration. Hence why we're seeing money from all these countries that I've been mentioning getting shipped out instead of being kept within Canada. And here's a side note, folks. While everybody is harping on the United States, and the United States said, you know what, we're not going to give money to the UN anymore. You know what, we're not going to give money to the World Health Organization anymore. We find things that they're doing to be corruption, not good for the world, and definitely not good for America. The pandemic treaty that wants to be signed for all the nations to allow the likes of the UN and WHO to come in during a pandemic and strip you away of your sovereignty rights and force you to take drugs or force you out of your home. These are documents you can read, folks. I am not nuts here. I know I'm a dude in the house code. I got a lot of time on my hands, and I enjoy looking these things up, and I am sharing with you. That's why I'm saying I am not an influencer. The only thing I want to influence is you to look and read more and judge for yourself. And maybe you'll see things my way, maybe you won't. And you can leave a comment in there. You can tell me what, I can look it up. I know I mentioned in another episode earlier that I'm going to talk about the Board of Peace. I will be talking about the Board of Peace, but I need to read more on the Board of Peace and where it came from and where it's going, so I can do a good show on that. But folks, we are in a managed decline. Think of all the years we had Trudeau, who turned down the European Union, who turned down Japan for natural gas from Canada, saying it's not a viable option. Yet we allow the turbine to go back to Russia during the early stages of the Ukraine-Russia war, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what side of that conflict you're on. People are dying, and I wish you would stop. That is the best way I could put it. But we had a turbine for the Nord Stream pipeline that needed to go back to Russia so they could continuously pump gas to Europe. We gave it back. Why is the European Union still buying Russian oil and gas and everything else? They are, folks. Look it up. You may not see it because the mainstream media won't tell you, but that is up to you to look beyond the headlines. It is true. Why would you continuously give your enemy money to fight you? That is what Donald Trump has said to the European Union. Why would you do that? It's asinine. That's why, as Canada is being exploited and we're having the Chinese Communist Party police stations in this country. If you don't remember that stuff, go look it up, folks. We have Chinese police stations here harassing Canadian citizens, including during the election, folks. Remember that. The elections, a candidate said to the public that you can turk my opponent, who is a conservative at the time, and you can call up China and said, I can collect a bounty on this man. You want me to ship him to China? I know I'm being a little silly here with my accent, but that is the gist of it. And the fact that the police told the conservative candidate, maybe you should lay low. Wow, Sam Cooper had death threats from the Chinese Communist Party and affiliates, and he himself is protected. He is, well, I guess I'm not going to go into too much detail of what he has done for himself to protect himself, but mind you, folks, he is living in a dangerous world, exposing the corruption that's within our country, and I honestly highly recommend you read his books like my mom did. She actually picked up a book. And Mom, House Coat Chat is the show, not bathroom talk. I can't get over that one. Anyways, love you, Mom, and love you, Dad. I thank you guys. Are my biggest fans, along with my wife, for the show. It is 21 minutes so far, and yes, the Canadian decline and everything else. And Carney is not our savior, like I said in the beginning of this little segment. He has been installed here, folks. The fact that two popular candidates were kicked out of the leadership race because they were worried that they would have too much influence on the outcome or actually win. There is so much wrong with that leadership race that happened not too long ago. They will install Mark Carney. And the fact that he wears the Order of Canada pin instead of a Canadian maple leaf, he is signaling his allegiance to the king. His brother works for the king. Yes, folks, and also let's talk about Brookfield here slightly, and let's talk about Epstein, because there is a connection recently. We saw, I shouldn't say we, but mind you, it's going to be our tax dollars, because our tax dollars, along with Brookfield, sign up with the United Emirates country over in the Middle East, AEU or the EAU. However that what it is, we signed a big agreement, trade agreement, AI infrastructure and stuff like that, but Brookfield was there before. Now here's the sticky part, folks. The CEO had to resign from the company because of his emails that he had exchanged with Jeffrey Epstein that shows exploitations of humans. I will leave it at that. That person had to resign, and this is Carney's company, Brookfield, even though he's not there anymore. But Carney is a very smart man, numbers man, and everything else. I am sure shit he's making sure that all the ducks line up in the row for his Brookfield thing. If you, yeah, and I'm serious there. I mean, you just look at the fact that Carney's wife, sister, is listed in the phone book of Jeffrey Epstein. Why? I'm not going to dwell too much more on that, but the fact that there is that there, and that company had to have its CEO resign, and everything else, there's more to that story of Carney. The fact that GANS, the Global Alliance of Net Zero of the Glasgow Conference, and trying to force companies to be more compliant with the green agenda, and they are under investigation still to this day. They are still under investigation by the House Judiciary Committee in the United States. Now, these investigations take time, are lengthy, and everything else, but I'm sure as shit that Carney's going to have something happen to Brookfield. I am sure as shit. Anyways, Folks, that's enough about Carney and everything else like that, or all these things. I just have another update for the Ostrich farm, which is slightly good news post-mortem of the killing of all those beautiful birds. I didn't agree with it, didn't like the story, didn't like the media representation of it. It just stunk, right? It did. And no matter how you look at it, these birds weren't continuously dying, so they should have been allowed to live. Because if their birds were such a hazard, then every animal that actually interacted with wildlife in this field should be sick too, right? They left a mess, the RCMP and CIFA, and because of all this stuff and the kerfuckle and all that, I'm not going to go back and rehash everything. If you want to know more about the ostrich story, it's easy to find any of that stuff online. If you're on X, you can just type in "Savor Ostriches," and there is a whole litany of stuff about the ostrich story. Trey Humphrey from Readable News as well, if you're not familiar with that. But anyways, let's get right to it. And I'm going to be looking at my notes again here, is the Canadian Agricultural Review Tribunal has slapped down CIFA for its handling of the whole fiasco of the ostrich call, and in fact has rescinded the fine that these people were supposed to pay regarding the whole initial brouhaha, whatever you want, of these ostriches. Anyways, it's nice to see that there is a governmental body that took CIFA to task and called them out on their bullshit. Yes, and that is a very, very good thing. And the other thing I'd like to mention too is the garlic farm that was beside the ostrich farm that was taken over by CIFA and the RCMP are being sued in the province of British Columbia for their overreach and stuff onto their livelihood because they trampled that place too. There may be more updates coming up on all this ostrich stuff. I just like to point that out. I don't think I will be going to talk about the Tumbler Ridge story much after this because, like I said, that's a big news story. My thoughts are to the family and friends of all the victims that were involved in there and all that wonderful stuff that's going. Again, is always lit for somebody. You know what I say when I say every show, it's lit for me, to people who I had in my life who encouraged me to do things and whatnot. And it's for you for whatever reason. And I like to point out sometimes that this is the reason it's lit for. Well, today it's lit for that girl Maya, and I hope heck that God listens and allows her to live as a normal life as possible, as a testament to the human spirit and all that. Now this video is a little bit shorter. I was thinking of trying to talk about some other stuff as well and all that, and even though it's almost near the 30-minute mark because I like to talk, I hope you like to listen. Remember, folks, you don't have to actually stare at me on the screen. You can set your device down, put in your earbuds, whatever, go about your day and just do your chores because I can be just a mindful distraction while you tiddly on to do something. You don't have to sit there, just stare at your screen like this. You can do other things. I don't have any fancy graphs. I'm not going to show you pictures of like news stories or anything else like that because I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm trying to encourage you as a citizen of this great country and this planet to read more so you know more and you can be more informed and you can tell the authorities, your government, and others who are trying to pull the wool over your eyes to say, nay, no, that don't happen here. Because that's what we need more of, folks. We need to make more of ourselves into the face of our people running the world because they're shitting on us and laughing at us, and it's got to stop. Because remember, Carney says we are going to suffer for a while. His wife said during the speech when he won that we are going to be poorer. I heard those words out of her mouth. I have closed captioning despite my hearing. I know it's a cruel world, folks, but wake up. Wake up, people. We have a nation and a world that needs to be better. And what's going on is not helping us. We need to rise up, folks, whether it's the civics, whether it's provincial or federal. We as people need to say more to get involved. And yes, I love talking, and I am going to call it now. Positive vibe to you all. And again, to the people of Tumbler Ridge and area, that's going as lit for you. Take care, folks, and enjoy the rest of your week. Another episode hopefully will be quicker and sooner than my last one. Thank you. End stream.